Hey, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? I am Daffy Duck here once again, and I'm Sonic the Hedgehog here. We are from the Maxi Toys, and welcome to you guys a remade playthrough of the game that we sort of did tackle this back in 2013, but then back in the day that we actually did the game called, you guys know what we're trying to talk about, in case if you didn't know the title already, which we're about to be doing a redo playthrough on the game that, you know, we actually did tackle this back in, again, 2013, so that we figured that since this is 2016, so even then though, that Piglet already done Toy Story 2, and Sylvester already done Toy Story 1 on the Sega Mega Drive, and now we're about to be jump into the third entry of the Toy Story video games. Starting like conclusion to the end is Toy Story 3. And the version we'll be playing on is the Xbox 360 version because, well, as you can tell, widescreen support and also HD support, which is actually, well, unfortunately though, this wasn't in 1080p per se, it was actually on 720p, but we'll explain more into that as soon as we actually go ahead and tackle the rest of this playthrough. So, yeah, without further ado guys, oh crap, we actually ended up in a demo mode, which you can see the gameplay footage on that already. So, yeah, this game, especially this is actually an adaptation to the film itself called, obviously, Toy Story 3, and I found that film to be a huge success, especially consists of how, back in 1999, that since Toy Story 2, we haven't had a Toy Story film for a long time, since the 11 years. Well, at least that film and the game came out in the exact same time in 2010. Well, since there's a good time that if we figured that Toy Story 4 would be on its way, so that, you know, since we're actually going to be doing a retrospective of the Toy Story games. So, I thought it was worth mentioning for that. So, right off the bat though, as soon as we start up the game up, the cutscene.
Train. The orphans! Ride like the wind! Dr. Porkchop.
It's Mr. Evil Dr. Porkchop to you, and I've got a score to settle with you, Sheriff Woody.
So here we go with the first level in Toy Story 3, which right off the bat we're gonna ride on Bullseye, and as you can tell, that since Toy Story 1 on the Sega Mega Drive, that it was essentially in a 2D side-scroller platforming game, that we're actually gonna be playing as Woody from ever since that, even though he wasn't a playable character in Toy Story 2 in the video game version, the PlayStation 1, especially in the Nintendo 64 and the Sega Dreamcast version. And even a PC version as well. But because of that, in Toy Story 2, Woody actually got kidnapped by Owl, and then Buzz is entirely up to Buzz to actually save him. So, yeah. So if you guys can tell already, that this film, especially the game itself, is almost roughly 6 years old at this point, especially consists of this film and this game in particular, that it was released in 2010. So, but again, that might be in its own amusements, but hey, at least the film itself is a huge success, especially consists of how, yeah, how amazing how Toy Story film trilogy actually handles out. Especially consists of we adored the first one, the second film, and the third one, so we can't wait until the fourth film comes out. Even though, unfortunately, that we will have to wait until 2018 until at some point, because Roundup is actually released on 2017, but instead College Studio was taking charge, and well, that's kind of a nuisance for me anyway.
Yeah, Bullseye! Huh?
And just like the ones in the Toy Story 3 film, that we're going to be immediately takes place in this little, somewhat of imagination of this Western themed level. Kind of reminds me of something related to Western Land from Mario Party 2. And as well as Shy Guys Progress Express in Mario Party 8. But even then though, that we're usually going to be dodging the evil Dr. Porkchop's missile attacks. So, this is Toy Story 3, the video game version, rather than just actually doing with some of the 2D side-scroller platforming scenarios, as well as the collectathons, which is essentially on the Pizza Planet tokens this time, because now and then, you're gonna actually do with the a linear pathway. So, well, basically what we have to do for this game, or in this case, in this level right here, since this is actually the first level in the game, I think the entire story plot elements is actually kind of sort of similar to how it does it from the Toy Story 3 as far as the actual movie, which I kind of think it does. So, as you can tell already, that the version we'll be playing is, again, the Xbox 360 version, because you can see these button icons, meaning that, well, we'll explain these controls until we actually get into it in just a second. So, basically, in this level here is you have to, like, dodge those evil Dr. Porkchop's, or in this case, Ham, for that little blast attacks and stuff like that. So if you guys can tell already, that this is the reason why we decided to redo this playthrough again is because, you know that as we said earlier, that back then in 2013, that we sort of done this back in, let's say about June the 10th on 2013. But due to the one dislike that I found out doing back in the day, that they actually there wasn't a huge success. Like we just used a pretty miserable buzzer beat camera, which is crappy quality. But thankfully though, thanks to the Rockstar Game Capture HD Pro, so that means it makes the entire quality in this itself is much better. Much better than how it does it from before though. So. But usually, oh crap, we're almost gonna die at that point right there. So, now and then though, that I believe just like how it does it in Toy Story 2's battery meter from Buzz Lightyear, and as well as the sheriff's hit points from Toy Story 1, that you still have a health bar and stuff like that. But if you actually let your health bar actually deplete itself, unlike how it does in the previous 2 Toy Story games, that you actually get yourself some limited amount of lives. In this game though, you have unlimited amount of lives, which you can die as many times as you wanted to this time around. And then basically that's how you're essentially going to deal with these types of feelings like these. So, that's kind of interesting to say the least. So, yeah. In some points of this level right here, we're going to have to use the first person view to actually just crap, we died. First step of the playthrough, ladies and gentlemen. Because basically what happens is that it has been a really long time since I actually played this game. Because last time we did play this was actually back in 2013. Or, in this case, 2014, if we actually play this game on our own time to actually get ourselves a bunch of achievements. Especially the Xbox 360 version of Toy Story 3. The game also be released on this specific version of the game, in this case the definitive version of Toy Story 3 in my honest opinion, is the fact that this game also be released on PlayStation 3, Nintendo Wii, and PC, and as well as the Nintendo DS version, the PSP, and PS2 version as well. But even then though, that the PS3 version of Toy Story 3 actually has an exclusive content, but we'll explain more into that until we actually get into the specific mode in this particular versions of the game. Mostly the Wii version, the PC version, the Xbox 360 version, and PlayStation 3 version. Because if you couldn't tell already, that the visuals look really gorgeous for the Xbox 360 version. And then there's also a slightly different versions on the Toy Story 3 video game version, is the fact that there was a DS version of the game, which I haven't looked up in any gameplay footage on that, but we'll explain to the DS version until then. And as well as the PSP version, which is essentially quite a slightly different version to this, and as well as the PS2 version all by itself as well. So, oh, darn it, stupid knockback. God, I hate knockback in this case, especially consists of how you know, it always happens to my parts right there. So yeah, again, we really do apologize for that since we haven't been to this game for a long time. So we need to get used to with it there, folks. It's just basically, even then though, that we actually did play Toy Story 1 from time to time though. Or in this case, Sylvester already tackles some Toy Story 1 for the Sega Mega Drive or Super Nintendo. But usually I'll go for a Mega Drive version because it's a definitive version because of all the levels you might actually could get from that. So, yeah. So just like how it does in the Toy Story 3 film, although unlike how it does in Toy Story 3 the film, that usually Jesse and Bullseye are going to help Woody out, or in this case if you actually be playing this on the PSP version or the PS2 version, that usually that Buzz Lightyear, although yeah, Buzz Lightyear can actually help you out in this particular level. And then basically what the story on the Toy Story 3 is actually happening is that it takes immediately after the events of Toy Story 2 is the fact that now Andy is actually now 17 years old, almost an adult seems like it if you're falling for the film. But even then though, that we actually did watch the film for the whole entire point since 2010 when it first came out on DVD. Well, usually we first saw it in the cinemas, but unfortunately we've seen it on 3D, which, to be honest, I'm not a big fan of 3D visuals though, because it makes it more distraction for me.
And so the evil Dr. Porkchop was defeated, and the orphan train made it safely to its destination.
Wait a sec. You had a giant pig ship and a fleet of attack drones, and you lost to a cowboy on a horse?
The iPad severely hampered my depth perception.
Oh, right. Blame the eye patch.
Anyway, back to the game board.
Which, if I can say, is seriously impressive. I cannot believe you built this.
Yeah, well, I wanted to create a map that featured all of the significant landmarks we encountered on our exciting journey here.
Hey, what's next? Should we go to Andy's
Oh,
house?
watch it, Rex. Just knocked Al's toy barn into the pond.
Oh, sorry. I'm
You
sorry.
hollowhead. Oh, I'm gonna have to reset the whole town.
Pardon me? What's this area again?
Hey, good eye, my prickly friend. That is a special part of the game called Woody's Roundup, where you can roam free, upholding justice as a sheriff in the Old West.
Cool. We can go there? Really? Let's go.
Only if a certain lizard brain promises not to stomp it to smithereens.
I probably won't. I promise.
So yeah, that concludes the first level in Toy Story 3, which was, I'm presuming the level's actually called down there, I believe, although we can't actually show it to you what's going on, because at the moment, after when you finish the first level in the game, you always have to be forced into this whole entire main mode in the game, or in this case, the main mode in the game, besides the story mode, that we're actually going to be traveling through Toy Box mode. Now, different from the other platforming levels is the fact that you're actually going to be doing a town simulation. So if every time when you actually do like some certain objectives or what have you, as well as some bunch of hints and tricks and all that stuff, that you're actually going to get yourself some bunch of buildings and certain characters, and hell, even vehicles and other sections of the entire hub world. So as far as the Woody's Roundup, as far as when this is considered,
The Sheriff of Woody's Roundup, congratulations! You're now in charge of bringing order and prosperity to our town. So bring in some gold and new toys to spruce up the place. Come on, get a move on.
Well, if it's a sheriff you need, you sure came to the right toy.
All right. Let's start out.
yeah,
by
sorry for the
breaking
bit of
down the shack and
awkwardness
breaking
quiet going on is because there was quite a lot of voiceovers that's been going on for this game. So I give this game such a huge, great presentation about this. Like, the lip syncing do match up to the English dialogue, especially in certain cutscenes. And also the game itself looks really, really beautiful, especially if you play this on the PlayStation 3 or even the Xbox 360 version. While the Wii version wasn't as crisp as the HD counterpart, it still looks great for a Nintendo Wii title. But I will say the worst looking of the bunch, it was actually probably the Nintendo DS version, because I don't want to mention that version. So anyway, so the controls in Toy Story 3 though, that if you actually be assuming if you actually play this on the Xbox 360 version like we do, that you move the character with the analog stick, or in this case the left thumbstick, if you like to call it that. A is the simple jump, and you can do a double jump while actually just press the A button twice. And then X button can actually use for certain actions, like talk, which you can say to say, that you can actually talk to some townspeople, and some occasional moments where you can actually deal with some special techniques. In fact, I believe this game actually has not 1, not 2, but 3 playable characters this time around, as opposed to in Toy Story 1, that you can only play as Woody for the entire time. And also that in Toy Story 2, they only have to play as Buzz Lightyear for the whole time. But now in this game, that we actually, in addition to actually have Woody and Buzz Lightyear returns for as a playable character, the newcomer to the playable characters department, which was Jessie, they, you know, since she actually first appearance in Toy Story 2. But even then, we'll get into that until we get to her at some point or another. So, for now though, that as soon as you actually complete some of these objectives throughout, that it more difficult the missions can actually get. Although, the first some sort of sequences of these missions here can be pretty simple and easier because they are essentially the tutorial parts at the beginning. Now, once you complete certain amount of missions and stuff, they sometimes actually advertise some of these items and especially some new places. Or yeah, even more vehicles and stuff. As far as the game audio, as you can tell, right? Oh goodness, it's Sneaky Pete, or Stinky Pete rather. I can't believe how he was actually there since Toy Story 2. But even then though, unlike the ones in the film though, that in the film doesn't usually have Stinky Pete though, but whereas in the video game that he somehow makes his appearance. But I'm pretty sure that unlike in Toy Story 2 video game version that he was essentially the final boss in the game, but now I'm pretty sure he was on the good side this time, I'm presuming, which I don't know why, but at least it's better than nothing though. But anyway, so I believe if you actually ask Stinky Pete here, that you actually get yourself a little toy you can actually just hold up with it and stuff, like the pickaxe. Like, if you essentially go near to these little golden bars and everything, like we did here. Oh yeah, we got ourselves an advertising, so...
Be the rootinest, tootinest, and cut your travel time in half by riding the fastest horse in the West. Yeah!
So yeah, the advertising, it always happens every time when you complete certain missions, and especially those little Al's Toy Barn little shopping currency. Yeah, the currency of the Toy Story 3 has to offer, it will have to be these little gold itself. Like every time when you're trying to actually complete certain missions like we usually do, is that we actually purchase items from the Al's Toy Barn little chicken thing. And then by doing so is to press the X button basically, so... Yeah, that's all that works basically when it comes to that though, so yeah, every time when you actually... Oh my god, that ham just actually got knocked over by this horses here. So yeah, it's kind of a hilarious things to happen. So yeah, every time when you actually purchase unlock everything, or in this case unlock something, that there's actually a little carriage right here, and that they're actually trying to deliver a present to you so that you can actually just play around with some things. Like for instance, that we're actually going to be taking controlling of Bullseye and Woody at this perspective stuff. And by doing so is by basically just rotate, move with the control stick obviously, as well as A's to jump basically, and as well as you can hold down the R trigger button to actually do a sprint, which you can tell from that right there. In order to actually get off though, is the fact I think you have to press the X button or something. This game has some serious amount of load times, even though it wasn't as long as it used to be from Sonic 06. But even then though, I don't think the load times aren't too much of a kryptonite in this game. Whereas compared to Sonic 06, there are way too many load times, which is kind of a pace breaker. So yeah, there's not much we can talk about for Toy Box Mode honestly, just because, well, although unfortunately though, that we'll decide to actually showcase more on Toy Box Mode. But it's just a brief showcase where we're actually going to show you guys how this mode works. Because basically, although the only entire point of this playthrough, as far as this entire game itself we're about to be tackling through, is the main story mode of the game, which basically is level-to-level scenario. So, even then though, it doesn't give you amount of requirements of the Pizza Planet tokens, unlike how it does it on Super Mario 64 and Toy Story 2, as far as the video game version is considered. But, hey. I think this might actually be the last thing we'll just want to showcase in the Toy Box mode, and then we'll just have to end things off, and plus we'll just have to move on to the next level, onto the story mode on Toy Story 3. So, yeah, there's not much we can talk about for this game in general. It's just basically that, now, originally that we decided to actually do this game on the 1080p support, or in this case the 1080p settings. But unfortunately though, we did done this before as a first recording session, but then this is actually the second attempt for this recording session because this was actually in 720p as opposed to 1080p. It's because the game footage, especially in 1080p settings at the moment for my programming software, that it constantly lags and chucks every time when this things runs, especially where it's like, I think it's mostly because it's more common, there's too many things on screen or something. Oh, we got achievement. Oh, okay. Yeah, every time when you get into other sort of missions right there, like for instance these Bullseye's racing sequence, you can get one of those either 3 different trophies. There's the bronze trophy, the silver trophy, or the gold trophy. The highest being the gold trophy, obviously. Taking a note from My Little Pony game, for the application game on the iPhone, especially the iPad, and even the Apple TV this time, that taking a note for that game is that you can actually wait until when the building is actually completed. And yeah, it's kind of a reminiscent to that, I have to admit though, in my honest opinion. So yeah, it's pretty cool obviously. However, I will admit though, is that the game audio, especially the music soundtrack, I ripped right out of the previous Toy Story films, I will say. But honestly, I don't mind about it because usually that yeah, it's just I don't mind that because it kind of reminds me of the flashbacks of when I was playing or while I was watching the previous Toy Story films. So yeah, I think that's where we're gonna showcase the toy box mode though. From what I've heard, it's actually quite a lot of fun. Definitely more of the highlights of the game. But the only problem I have with it is just the long load times and stuff. So we're gonna have to end things off here. So next time on Let's Play Toy Story 3 is that we're moving on to Andy's house. So see you guys then. Later, fellas. Which is the second level in the game.